Thaddeus Stevens was born in 1792, in a time when America was still finding its identity. The country preached freedom, while millions remained in chains. But unlike the men who built this nation on so-called liberty, Stevens saw the lie from the beginning. Born with a clubfoot, he was mocked, ridiculed, and told he would never be great. In an era where physical imperfections were seen as weaknesses, he knew what it meant to be outcast, and maybe, just maybe, that's what made him different. Because when you grow up knowing what it's like to be discarded, you see the world differently. They called him crippled, broken, unworthy. But if they thought their words would break him, they were wrong. Stevens was brilliant, his mind sharper than any blade. He studied law relentlessly, spending nights under candlelight, poring over legal texts while others slept. He understood something that most men of his time refused to accept. The law wasn't just a tool of power, it was a weapon that could change the world, and he was ready to use it. As a lawyer, Stevens didn't just fight cases, he fought battles. He didn't just defend clients, he defended principles. When an enslaved man or woman stood before the court, desperate for freedom, Stevens didn't see property, he didn't see profit. He saw people, and that made him dangerous. At a time when most white men avoided controversy, Stevens ran straight into the fire. He took cases others wouldn't touch. He defended free black people who were being kidnapped and sold into slavery. And he often did it for free, because to him, justice wasn't for sale. But justice comes at a cost, and in a country built on the backs of enslaved people, fighting for their rights made Stevens an enemy of the status quo. The whispers followed him everywhere, the stares, the quiet threats. They called him a fanatic, a madman, a race traitor. But the more they attacked him, the harder he fought. Because Stevens wasn't in this for popularity. He wasn't in it for power. He was in it for the truth. And the truth was terrifying to those who built their lives on lies. By the 1850s, America was at a breaking point. Slavery wasn't just an institution. It was an erasure, a billion-dollar economy built on black bodies. Every cotton field, every sugar plantation, every tobacco farm, all of it was fueled by the blood and sweat of enslaved people. And most politicians, they weren't trying to end it. They were trying to make sure it never ended. The South wanted expansion, more land, more slaves, more power. The North? Too many were willing to compromise. But not Stevens. While others whispered in private, he stood up and shouted. While others looked for a middle ground, he demanded abolition. He didn't care about political friendships. He didn't care about Southern anger. He cared about justice, and because of that, he was hated. To the enslaved, he was a hero. To abolitionists, he was a warrior. But to the Southern elite, he was a threat, a menace, a man who had to be watched. And they were watching him closely, waiting, planning. Because men like Stevens, they don't just get opposition, they get enemies. Then came the Civil War, a battle not just for the soul of the nation, but for the future of millions. Abraham Lincoln wanted to save the Union, but Stevens, he wanted something more. He wanted to destroy the system that built it on slavery. At first, even Lincoln thought Stevens was too extreme, too radical, too uncompromising. But as the war raged on, the battlefield changed Lincoln, and Stevens, he pushed harder than ever. By the end of the war, Stevens's vision was winning. But that's when the real fight began. Slavery was gone, but Stevens wasn't done. He knew that without land, wealth, and power, freedom meant nothing. So he fought for reparations, real land redistribution. And most dangerous of all, punishment for the South. And that's when the system struck back. Hard. The old guard, the wealthy elite, the men who lost the war, they weren't done fighting. Stevens was getting old. His body was failing. But even on his deathbed, he fought. Until the very end. And when he died, so did his vision for true equality. The war was over. Slavery was abolished. But the battle for America's soul had only just begun. Stevens had done what no white man before him dared. He had fought, bled, and sacrificed for true equality. But his enemies weren't just trying to stop him. They wanted to erase him. He was buried, not just in the earth, but in history itself. His name stripped from textbooks. His fight overshadowed. His legacy stolen. But how? Who had the power to erase one of the fiercest fighters for justice this nation has ever seen?